Warning, the following video has flashing lights and also includes content that may be deemed inappropriate for some viewers. Viewer discretion is advised. Bigfoot's Barber Shop, aka the one and only Mr. Barber, has once again found his way into the Fox Den for this episode of Midnight Lycanthropy here on StarFox Radio. Absolutely delicious. I could sit here and feed all day and night. Yet, Mr. Barber and myself do need to attend to the darkness.
Stood up. I said, oh my god, it's a werewolf, and everybody in the car freaked out.
My creatures of the night, once again, it is midnight lycanthropy time here on StarFox Radio. Brian Barber, aka Bigfoot's Barber Shop, has decided to leave his furry companions and make his way through the dark, dense, and foggy werewolf and dogman infested forest to sit down by the late night fire and burn the midnight timber with us once again. How you doing tonight, man?
Doing good so far. Was just ready to almost call it a night and got your text. So it's like, I'm not passing up an opportunity to get together with you. So up I got.
Appreciate it, man. Good stuff, man. I appreciate you. And it's been snowing quite a lot your way, you said. And I actually just got back. I was out getting some pretty cool footage for, long story short, is I would like to make my own silent black and white film based off I'm going to say werewolf at the moment, because I think that would bring a little bit more creativity to it, kind of like the 1922 Nosferatu German film. And that's what I was doing. So when I got home, I had some texts from you, some texts from Miss Jessica Jones, and a ton of other people. But when I become creative and need to, I guess, put myself into my mind as to what I'm trying to create, I cannot have any outside interference at that moment, if it makes sense. So I don't usually bring my phone with me unless I'm gonna, be in an area that I'd be worried about contacting people, but it's never that, knock on wood. So I don't usually bring it with me. It's sitting at home on airplane mode or do not disturb or off to save some battery till I charge it. And I'll go out, do my thing, because all I need is my GoPro and, a couple other little trinkets I have to get some cool footage and just think and be like, all right, well, what would the character be doing here? Or why would they be here? Or how would they be acting? And that's pretty much what I was doing, dude. So
I wonder when the last silent film was made, because this would probably be the first in a very long time. Black and white at that.
It's a very cool way to be artistic, I feel like, for sure. I mean, obviously, I would never want to always watch silent films, yet there are plenty of films with vocabulary, noise, music that are really terrible. And there are actually some pretty cool silent films. So it really all depends on the purpose or the attribute that's trying to be filmed. I mean, same thing. Do I want to watch home style cell phone footage movies all the time? Of course not. But do some of those work really well? Yeah, of course they do. So it's just, yeah, an interesting way to put a twist on something while just adding more to my resume and I guess just accomplishing things I've kind of always wanted to do, dude.
Yeah, because you don't always need words for expression if you got the right people. I mean, I watched that movie Passion of the Christ and I hate subtitles, and so but they did the movie so well I didn't need to read the subtitles because I understood what was going on even without reading.
Yes, great stuff right there. And before we dive into, yes, the audience should enjoy this, we are up in the Northeast. Ooh, my stomping ground, but even closer to my stomping ground, we're in the same state, Maine. Yes. So this should be an interesting topic for you. And, well, hopefully after this great expedition we have, the Bruins decide to enlighten my night a little bit more because in the last two games, we've been outscored like 13-14-2, and it's been absolutely miserable. And, I'm not going to lie, it's put me in a pretty salty mood sometimes. So I'm looking for something to, turn the other way. But yes, we'll be up in Maine tonight. But would you like to tell the audience what you've been up to, man?
Well, last night I did a ripper of a show. It turned out really well. I hit on two cases that aren't talked about a whole lot and are really controversial, and it even got the chat a little fired up, the fact that I would bring them up. So it was actually kind of fun to play devil's advocate. We're heading back to the Bigfoot world, and then today I was hoping to get out in the woods, check things out, but as I told you, it's a seasonal road, so it's hit and miss if I can get back there. When I got back there, it was thigh deep on me. I didn't have my snowshoes with me. My 2012 Malibu was not going through that snowbank to get to the other side. So got the workout in, came home, shot a couple of videos and now to edit, and now I had the pleasure of talking with you. It's a great way to end the night.
That's great stuff, man. And to yourself and everybody else, especially during, the winter times in general, you want to make sure while you're enjoying the beauty of nature, you have the proper things you need. But especially in the wintertime, people think that, a little trip out there is just a little trip. And others think they can kind of push the limit a little bit with some of their survival skills. But just make sure to be careful. Recently, a young up-and-coming survivalist named Storm Outdoorsy. Rest in peace, my friend, got caught in a bad situation where he was unable to make it back to his car during his podcast, or whatever you'd like to call our programs here on YouTube he was creating, and was found deceased with his feet frozen, his legs frozen, and a broken nose where he had fallen as he tried to still continuously crawl towards his car. So this was a young individual. I believe he was 24, and he had plenty of skills doing this in, pristine health, more or less. And, well, nature does not care. And if nature can take out a dominant predator like a grizzly bear or a dominant herbivore like a bison, well, there is no reason it can't take out a smart young human being either. So just be careful out there for sure, man.
Arrogance is the kiss of unbreathing. You have too much faith in your own skills, and when something goes a little further south than you were planning for, I rolled an ankle this summer out in the woods, and luckily I found a branch that could support my fat butt. As I hobbled back to my car, it was about 3/4 of a mile uphill and took me over 4 hours. And that's because I wasn't prepared with any type of medical, even ACE bandage. So which is now in my backpack.
Yeah, that's probably something that you should really make sure that you do have kicking around, because you really never know the situations that, well, could be unfolding. That's for sure. And well, tonight in two of these encounters are actually quite recent. And, I do enjoy the historical aspects. Yet, well, I do think it's also interesting to look into some of these more recent ones to, well, see if there's something to it or if people are just yanking everyone's chain. And one of these, well, we have multiple people that had seen this unfold. So you have the perspective of the individual it occurred to, and then you have the perspective of a group of individuals that were with him. So, as my cousin, who used to be a forensic detective, would say, there's always multiple sides to this story depending on who is involved. Meaning, if it's you and I, well, there's three sides to the story. What do you mean, Star Fox? Well, there's mine, Brian's, and then the truth. That's just how it works, right? I mean, I don't know how many times I have to say it, how many times I have to reiterate it again. Go on to Hulu. There's a show called Crime on Elm Street, which ironically, all these Elm Streets across the United States have had crazy things occur on them. Moral of that is you can see it, you can listen and hear how all these criminals that get convicted and the evidence is undeniable will tell you up and down, I don't own a black pair of Nikes. Okay. Well, then why did we find a black pair of Nikes with your DNA in them and blood all over on the outside? Person sat there over and over again, telling the families, telling the police, still in court denying it, even though his DNA is tied into it. So it's out there. I mean, people should just go and check it out and understand that what can occur, but also how human testimonial is just sometimes hot garbage. Okay. It really is. I mean, who's the one telling you the testimonial? I mean, what's their background, etc. It's just important to look into that because, I mean, time and time again, people can show you why testimonial doesn't mean anything. Oh, I didn't do this. I was at work. Okay, well, why is this security camera at this apartment complex that you claim you were at work show you carrying what looks to be a carpet outside and putting it in a dumpster and rolling it out to the side of the road? Oh, and then ironically, the person you had an issue with, that's them, that's inside of some carpet out there, but you didn't do it. Person swears up and down they didn't do it. And then they just pin them to the wall with evidence, man, DNA here. But it's like, dude, this person still in their mind is so convinced they didn't do anything that they're going to tell you that, man. So that's just what I mean about sometimes with encounters, dude. People can convince themselves of something. So it's just always important to be wary. And what do you think about that before we get rolling, man?
I think you're 100% right. When I was getting my associates for social work, I took a psychology class. And one of the things the professor did was on that fateful day in September, he's like, how many of you saw, everybody saw the second plane, but how many of you saw the footage of the first plane that day? And like 3/4 of the class put their hand up. And I'm like, I don't remember, but I didn't pay too much attention. And he goes, now, how many of you were sure? And they all raised their hand. And he goes, okay, 3 people out of this class are right because the footage didn't come out until the second day. So it showed that a traumatic event can cause memories to even blend together, even though you're unintentionally doing so. Because you want to put a sequence to things. And then if you say the first plane, you automatically want to think, okay, yeah, I saw that before the second one.
Yes, so interesting. And it's something we can dive more into for sure at another point in time on some of the other podcasts we roll with. But it really kind of comes almost into the line of the Mandela effect, meaning obviously there's different reasons for that, but it just shows you how people swear up and down something occurred at this point in time. or this logo used to be this logo, and the company's like, dude, we've had this company forever, and the logo was never like that, but people swear it is. So it is something that's really intriguing for sure. And it's not that I'm hating on people, and people can take it for what it is. I mean, if they don't want to come talk to me, that's okay. I mean, I'm not going to discredit anybody, but I'm also not going to give platforms to things I don't believe that occurred. And I'm also not going to ever sway my scientific mind about something until people can show me quality reasons to change my mind frame about it. Meaning, if someone wants me to believe in portals and such, no reasons I wouldn't change my mind on it, but there's zero scientific evidence to support that. Okay. I shouldn't say zero, because there are energies and magnetic poles which could do some of that, but there isn't enough evidence from any sort of people that I respect or value their minds frame to tell me, hey, this is occurring and this is possible. I don't know. It's just a gift and a curse to be scientific based, I feel like, because everyone loves a good story. But man, if you want a good story, then just go watch something that's not factual based. I mean, at the end of the day, I like to learn. Okay. So some people are going to be different. Some people don't like to learn. I'm entertained by knowledge and facts. That excites me. That is something I enjoy watching, is when I'm sitting here learning about prehistoric ancestors or predator behavior or things like that. Other people would prefer to sit there and watch brainless things, like somebody walking around a yard sale, just picking up things at a yard sale, or fishing with magnets in our river, etc. Or some people want to sit there and watch people play video games. Like, those things aren't interesting to me. Like, knowledge and learning is interesting to me. So I always put myself around people that are super smart and show me reasonings to want to keep learning, but also wanting to not become complacent with a thought process and also knowledge in general. And that's pretty much the last thing I wanted to touch base on before we start rolling. What do you think about that, man?
I think if you want to surround yourself with smart people, that's a great thing. Why you have me back, I have no idea. It must be out of pity, but I mean, I'm the same way. I like to learn, which is why I've stayed in the physical fitness industry since 1986. There's always something new coming out, even if it's something old that's coming back around that, and I'll dive into on a podcast coming up in January, but old information that had been written off, all of a sudden they're finding out the meatheads were right all along, and it's scientific based, proving it. So information from 40 years ago is just now being proven to be effective.
Yeah, it's great stuff, man. I mean, just learning it. People don't have to want to learn about, like, ancient ancestors or dinosaurs, whatever, but I just encourage people to learn about things that are quality and don't be afraid to learn. I don't know. Some people, just like I said, either choose not to learn or just don't want to learn. But all right, so this first encounter up here in the good old 207. Well, this is a pretty interesting one because I actually had a chance to speak to this individual and his family. Long story short is his family was not happy with him whatsoever and decided that he was going to be grounded for the rest of the remaining part of the summer where this occurred. And they didn't really seem to believe this kid, which is pretty interesting because he really had no reasoning to say what occurred. And I don't know, they tended to ask me with sarcasm, you don't believe in this werewolf or dog people crap, do you? And I was like, well, not directly, but I do still want to, try to figure out potentially, what's occurring. And he has pretty interesting encounter. But yeah, so they weren't too impressed with this. But it was July 29th, 2023 at 3:15 a.m. Grafton Loop Trail, Bethel, Maine. 15-year-old Nathan Beckman is camping with an outdoor specialist group called Overland Summers near a remote part of the 38-mile loop trail that connects to 9 mountain peaks. Beckman steps outside of his tent to relieve himself when he is suddenly blindsided from behind and carried off into the forest by what he said seemed to be a gigantic werewolf. Screaming for help as he was being carried off into the darkness, trip leaders burst out of their tents, but they are unable to find Beckman. The group tried following his cries for help, but whatever had taken the boy was making easy work of the dense forest. A search party was sent out at 5 a.m. to find Beckman, led by Maine Game Warden Preston Pomerleau and his canine partner, Gordon. The pair were able to find the teen's missing jacket and hiking boots, but nothing else. At 3:10 p.m., Warden Pomerleau heard screaming from a deep part of the forest and followed the sound until he found Beckman desperately trying to find his way back to the campsite. When the boy was found by Warden Pomerleau, he was about a mile away from the original abduction site, outside of his tent where he was taken. Beckman's family said in a statement that their son is okay and that the family has no further comments. Question is, who took this kid? What is taking people in the forest? Is it natural predation or a known animal? The question still remains open. What do you think, man?
And carried out by something carrying a person, but the other people couldn't catch up.
Yeah, and they said they heard something taking the kid off through the forest, but they don't know what it was, but they heard loud branches and things breaking and crushing, and that's the middle of the night. So could the kid have been hoaxing? I guess, but that's a good way to get your eyeballs or something poked out, just running blindly into the forest. I mean, they didn't see lights or anything.
Did they find tracks or anything?
No, but at this point in time of year where it had occurred in this area, it's really dense forest and such. So there's a lot of leaves and brush. Nah, I mean, as far as I know, that wasn't released in the document. And I mean, the kid hadn't seen anything along the lines of that. I don't know if the warden did. I mean, I would assume that probably wouldn't have been released. And I don't think he would tell me even if I got a chance to talk to him.
Yeah, so the parents weren't impressed and basically grounded him for the rest of his life for that.
Not the rest of his life, but yeah, the rest of the summer and into the school semester. Yeah, they were super ticked off, man, because they think it's some big prank, but the kid swears up and down it's not. And the people that were with him are baffled as to what carried him away. I mean, they heard it. They heard breaking through the forest and him screaming. So,
yeah, and how old was he?
15.
I mean, you're probably talking 130 to 150 pound kid. Maybe 120. But still, to throw that over your shoulder and be able to get away from the people behind you. I don't see many people doing that unless I happen to be a CrossFit athlete who came across these kids, who was wearing a large hairy suit.
Yeah, especially in Maine, because Maine, well, it's just like a lot of places down south. People have a ton of weapons up here. And yeah, you might not want to just be running in a furry suit on somebody's property you don't know, because that's a good way to take a couple pieces of lead, man, for sure.
Yeah, that's like here. Everybody owns a little something that's got something special coming out of the business end. You don't want to be running around in a fur coat.
Yeah, that's what
Think of
I'm
it, you
saying.
don't know who it is, who's even in there if they've got one.
Yeah, super bizarre case for sure. And he said it just reeked and smelled like a wet, dirty dog. And he said it felt like dog fur. And he said after he was kicking and screaming, and the people, off trying in the distance trying to find him, he was able to get the creature or whatever this was to drop him, and apparently get discouraged from the rest of the screams and stuff. And why it didn't come back and get him, I'm not sure. But yeah, interesting, man.
Would think that would fall under what we had been talking about with the risk versus the reward at that point.
Yes, because I heard the other people coming, and then I realized, oh crap, the whole camp's awake now. And like you said, yes, it didn't probably. Yeah, there's going to be a lot of people looking for that kid. They already were. So
I mean, it all falls in line with what we've been talking about over the last couple months. Was he taking him to consume him right then, or was he taking him to fatten him up a little bit? And then way too much commotion going on. He knew he wasn't going to get out of it unscathed unless he dropped him. I say he, but it.
yes. Well, I mean, honestly, all the cases do point, for the most part, of the females being pretty docile. I haven't heard a case of a female trying to consume a person. Not saying that it wouldn't happen, but they all seem to be males, jet black, glowing eyes, etc. And also, like I said before to you, I mean, wolves have a very large radius. It's like 250 miles or so that they go outside of their area of their den, and they'll feed anywhere from 30 to 35 miles away from that den. So same thing. I mean, this thing could have been in its area of hunting, the 250-mile range, but it could also potentially wanted to get him closer to its den before it started consuming. And like you said, it just heard all these people screaming, so didn't think it was the best option at that point in time.
Yeah, and to be so recent too.
Yes, that's why I found it to be pretty cool. I shouldn't always use that word, but it is cool to me because I'm getting to cover a topic. I'm sure as heck that it wasn't cool for the individual because, yeah, he was mortified. His parents did not find it to be cool whatsoever. And I'm sure that the main game wardens that had to spend their time searching for this kid didn't find it cool. But like I said, it's fascinating to learn about this as to potentially what's occurring. And I have another one for you that's pretty recent as well, which occurred in August 2023, Somerset County, Maine. And the reason I isolated both of these is because they're remotely around the same time frame and in Maine. They're not necessarily directly near each other, but within travel distance of anything that wanted to, for sure. You have a man named John who owns a cabin in a remote part of the county, and he decides he would like to go out fishing on a nice remote lake near his cabin one afternoon with a buddy of his. As the men are talking and casting away, they begin to hear a loud splash coming from the opposite shoreline. Looking at the direction of the splash, the two men suddenly see an enormous 6 to 8 foot tall, dark black, shaggy, human-like dog creature with pointed ears, a long muzzle, glowing red eyes, and a long, lanky set of human-like arms, was seen walking out of the water, and then it began to shake itself off just like a dog. Suddenly, the creature turned and looked in the direction of the men before again turning around and walking away upright on two large, bent back canine-like legs.
Sounds like somebody was taking a bath, came out, looked at us, and mind your business, and I'm out of here. That sounds so similar to that. What show was it on? Woods Are Haunted. The three brothers
Yes.
involving the fishermen couldn't get the spotlight to stay on, but at least this one just kind of gave them a look and walked away. I think they got out pretty easy.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting stuff right there for sure. And again, it's well, a perspective of just one person and this other guy, but only one person's talking, the other person doesn't. So I guess it's definitely hard to know. Again, I mean, what was the way his friend viewed all this? I mean, did his friend give him permission basically to speak for both of them, meaning I saw what you saw, I don't really want to talk about it? Or did his friend not see anything, which is why his friend doesn't talk? It's really interesting, and that's just what I mean about not taking that lightheartedly, but also not taking it to full heart, because it really is just a speech. It's just words. And I know that sounds harsh, but is that not the truth? I mean, there's no scientific evidence to support that. There's no footprints, there are no audio recordings, no hair samples, no images that could be blur squashes, but still no images in general. Absolutely nothing. It's just one person saying something. And I think personally, I'd be a fool just to believe all that.
It does throw up a red flag when the other person won't talk, or at least issue a statement that says, yes, this happened, and that's all I'm saying about it. You know, that was a hot topic on one of the cases I did last night. Was for, I believe it was 7 years, the guy wouldn't say a word because he saw the ridicule that the original speaker took. And it took him 6 or 7 years, and then he still wanted to remain anonymous on the camera. You know, so the only thing you could see the back of his head and legs and hear his voice. But far as I know, up until at least 5 years ago, his name still had not been released. So, you know, maybe the second person doesn't speak out, A, because it didn't happen, like you said, or B, they don't want to face the ridicule that goes along with it. You know, they don't want to be some nutter who saw a Dogman come out and shake off his bathwater and then take a stroll to find the ladies.
Exactly. And again, I would like to always believe people, but I will give some more examples. I mean, there are certain people out there that have had hoaxers on their show, and after knowing they're hoaxers, they still had them on, and also after being warned they were hoaxers, they still had them on. Okay, so it happens. I mean, people are questionable. If someone tells so and so that you have a tweaker out here that we know is a tweaker that literally is living in an abandoned building and is a straight up maniac, who then tells this other individual or others he's had some sort of encounter, and then he's given a platform and people are seeping it up. Well, yeah, where's the evidence is the first thing I'm going to ask. And then people are like, well, there isn't any. Okay, yeah, it's just his word of mouth, but why do you think he isn't telling the truth? Well, the fact that here he's a tweaker, he lives here, blah, blah, blah. We know all of this because someone we know went down to the area supposedly that this occurred to investigate, and then found out that this was actually the area and met up with these people. And yes, it's a thing, man. People are not all in the right frame of mind and just want to get attention and think that they're getting attention in a good way by doing things like that. And also people exaggerate and make up things. Okay. I've recently dealt with a hoaxer, unfortunately, and just in general, it's part of modern day life. I mean, you had people hoaxing certain dinosaurs they supposedly found. You had people hoaxing the Loch Ness Monster, like the surgeon photos. You had people hoaxing the original term Bigfoot, where this guy and his nephew and their brother were trying to mess with somebody else on the site, and they were just using these fake footprints. And yeah, I mean, of course Sasquatch exists. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying there is hoaxing. It's just involved, man. It's unfortunate, dude, but it's something that occurs. And all those people, until they told you finally not, swore up and down that it occurred. You just got to make sure to ask subjective and objective questions when you approach the topic. You can't just believe everybody, man. It's not the way the world works. I would love for it to be like that, but it's just not, man.
No, it's not. And the hoaxing makes the scientific part of it even more problematic because of the fact that how does science to take something serious when these people are out there doing what they're doing? And if anybody wants to flame somebody, you can DM me directly at Bigfoot's Barbershop, or you can find me on Facebook. I'm going to go out there and say Todd Standing is probably the worst example because of the fact I believe he's had experience, but he's also been caught hoaxing. I think he has good intentions of the hoaxing, but if you got a pair of gorilla gloves that 3 people see in your truck and you say, oh, they were just a gift, and then they show up in your movie, but you're trying to do this in order to save the Sasquatch, you just threw, Bigfoot out with the bathwater. Now nobody's going to believe anything you put out there. So hoaxing is, even if you got good intentions, you're still lying your hind end off. So your testimony is junk, even if it is partially true.
Yep, that's another thing too. Is if one thing doesn't match up, then that means everything there forth isn't going to match up. And it's like my buddy Steve Stockton was saying, there are people out there again that have large platforms and such that will take one encounter of a cryptid and change it into 6 by simply changing dates and names and locations and little tweaks. And that's awful, man, because now, even if that one encounter was true, now you have 5 that aren't. And also, it's a ton of misinformation.
Oh, yeah. I mean, little Susie just went down the bathtub with the water. You're done at that point. There's no coming back from it.
Yeah, because even though that one actually really might have been awesome evidence, it's now been changed and altered. And look at it like this. Take a bottle of whiskey, right? Okay, that's whiskey. It's a real bottle of whiskey. But then you start giving out shots, right? That bottle now is still a real bottle of whiskey, but that's like the truth part of it, meaning when it was opened, that real encounter could have been. But now that you've poured it all out and all these shots and everyone else has drank some and it's missing some now, sure, that's still a bottle of whiskey, but it has no whiskey really anymore, meaning it's like not, you can't take any sort of truth from that, because even if you poured water into it to then try to fill the bottle of whiskey, which is like taking the 5 cases out of one, sure, one might have been true. It's so watered down now, there's nothing of value to it.
Yeah, I mean, it's worthless. And now with the internet, the internet doesn't forget. And the people who put these people on are morons. I mean, they're just looking for views at that point, whether it's good views or bad views. Myself, I couldn't do that. If I'm running a podcast, I know somebody's been throwing the BSs and bologna sandwiches around. I wouldn't have them on. I don't care if he got 1 million views. Just on my morals and character alone wouldn't let me do it. I wouldn't give him a platform.
Right. And have you ever noticed, before we start to tie this up, about how there's such a division between like science and then the cryptids, meaning the great minds that I value, like the Forrest Galantes and all these awesome people like Extinct Zoo and just these brilliant scientists and people that aren't connected with us, which is why I mentioned it. They just show all kinds of reasonings to back up why it's an existing animal, because they actually do take some time to look into some of this. But yet all the cryptid people just want to avoid all that and then want to just go to these people's channel that have no background in what they're talking about. These people I just mentioned are biologists and scientists and are actually spreading and telling you real things about why in this area this cryptid actually was this, because this was occurring. And when you look at it like this, and they just break all these things down, whether or not it's true for all those sightings, that's not what I'm saying. I'm trying to say is that they just don't take any of that to heart at all. The cryptid people just literally ignore all of this. And then they sit there and somebody posts the craziest dogman caught on trail cams. And then it's like you just watch everybody seep it up when that is literally the hottest garbage in the world. Yet the actual science side, people just want to not pay attention to. And I just feel like it's the same thing with here. I try to provide science. So you have people that want to learn about science and things, but then the people that want just the crazy clickbait encounters don't want to tune in.
Yeah, and the beautiful thing about what you're doing is because of your experience and your history and being able to deliver scientific information in an entertaining way. Most of the scientists normally can't do that. So people want to be entertained. So it's very rare when somebody's able to take that information, break it down into layman's terms, pop in a couple jokes here and there about it, but still get that information out in a way people can understand.
No, I appreciate you, man. Very kind words, because yes, growing up, I always did feel like some of the really educational things just had some ingredients missing, meaning like there used to be I can't remember the gentleman's name, but it was called like Nature. That's literally what it was called. And it was on VHSs and my parents had it. And we used to watch that all the time. And there was a ton of them. Well, it was kind of cool because you got to see the animals and stuff, but it was really bland. Okay. It almost felt like an after school special, meaning like the things where they try to show you something in school with like PowerPoint and it's supposed to be something of value, but it's so dang bland. It's so blah. But that's not the way knowledge should be, because knowledge is excellent and there's so many great ways to do it. Like you said, just put a little bit of entertainment on the actual science and facts asides, so people don't feel like they're sitting there, watching an after school special, because no one wants to feel like that. And it is unfortunate for some reason, man. Some of these brilliant minds, would just struggle with trying to get the translation of being able to get people to want to listen, even though it's so important to want to listen to. So no, I appreciate that, man.
No, I mean, it's totally the truth, because it's literally like watching the difference between a scientific Comedy Central versus PBS.
Yeah.
I know which one I'm going to watch, and still learn something. Heck yeah.
Well spoken. There we go. Yes, I love how you said PBS. Yes, there we go. I feel like out of all of them, they do provide proper, great information, but I would much rather watch National Geographics or History Channel or Discovery Channel, because, like you just said, I feel like there is still the entertainment aspect of it. When they're showing the documentary about the animals, you still see some cool camera shots and maybe how the crew got stuck on the bridge for a second and the mud flying through still, and you have the narrator talking. There's still some cool entertainment to it, like you said. Whereas PBS, it's like, dude, did you purposely try to take the most bland narrator of all time to be on your broadcasting network at this point in time? I love dinosaurs so much, but man, this is awful to watch this. The knowledge is great, but I'm so bored.
The monotone will put you to sleep. There's no expression in the lights half the time. It's like, okay, I'm watching the pictures, but I tuned that voice out about 20 minutes ago.
That's funny you said that, as we're going to let you go here pretty soon because you are a busy guy. That's like me recently with the Bruins game, because that's true what you just said. You get to a point, right, where I got to still watch it because it's my, team and stuff. But your brain is just like, dude, we're not letting you absorb this anymore, man. All right, this is off now. So even though you still have it on, you're just thinking about something else off in La La Land, all right? Because you have just been so traumatized that it is 8-1 at this point in time. Almost 1:30 in the morning because your team's playing on the West Coast. In your mind's just like, that's it, dude. No more.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks again for coming to hang out with us tonight, man. I appreciate it for sure. And I look forward to, again, speaking to you. I will be talking to you tomorrow, but to the audience, you will catch Mr. Barber here sooner than later because I have a bunch of videos in the oven always cooking up. And, well, yeah, I'll be putting them out there pretty soon, eh? But thanks again, man. I appreciate you.
Oh, my pleasure. Anytime I can come hang out in the Dogman's den and beat on the coffin and talk with my buddy Kenny, you bet.
If you did make it this far tonight, you truly are a legend, and I adore every single one of you. Please like, comment, and subscribe. Feed the algorithm, and I will catch you very soon.